Good morning, everybody. This is Sarah O'Brien. We're going to wait just a few more minutes until it's 11 o'clock for some other people to join. Good morning, everyone. This is Sarah O'Brien at the Highway Safety Research Center. It's right at 11 o'clock, so thank you for those of you who have already joined, and hopefully while we're doing a little bit of introductions, we'll have a few more people come online. I did want to let everybody know that this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the website, so if there's other folks in your community or that would be stakeholders for your Watch for Me program who aren't able to join you today that might be interested in applying or hearing about the program, please feel free to share that link with others. I'm going to turn it over to Ed Johnson briefly to do another little bit of introductions for on behalf of NCDOT.
Good morning, everybody. This is Ed Johnson with NCDOT and the Integrated Mobility Division, which used to be the Bicycle and Pedestrian Division and Public Transit Division until we combined earlier this fall. But I just wanted to welcome you to the webinar today. Hope you get some good information, and also to say thank you to Sarah and Christian and Allison for getting this organized and for their continued technical assistance with the program. Thank you all for being here today.
Thanks, Ed. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a overview of what we're going to cover today. For those of you who maybe are completely new to Watch For Me, it's a comprehensive program that's aimed at reducing the number of pedestrians and cyclist crashes with motorists. And wanted to give you guys a little bit of the highlights on the program, and then we'll go into what you get as being a Watch For Me partner community, as well as what NCDOT expects of you as a partner. And then we'll wrap it up with details about how to apply specifically. And then at the end, we'll open up the floor for any questions that you might have. So just a critical part of the 5E approach is really looking at education and enforcement. That's what the Watch For Me program looks at. And statewide, this is because there's more than 3,100 pedestrians and 950 bicyclists that are hit by cars on an annual basis, and largely these people are sustaining injuries. So Watch For Me is about empowering communities to identify the safety issues and the needed actions so that they can address those crashes. It supports implementation of evidence-based approaches like community engagement, training, capacity building for law enforcement officers, and planners and engineers and educators and other people who might have a stake in this. While the focus is not specifically on engineering or infrastructure improvements, Watch For Me does help foster interagency relations that can be can indirectly help accelerate those targeted types of improvements in a community's built environment that's stemmed from collaboration between the officers, planners, and engineers. And evaluation is always an important component of the Watch For Me program so that we can measure what we're doing effectively and course correct if needed. So there's actually two different ways to think about the goals with Watch For Me. In the short term, it's about raising awareness of the issues, making sure that people understand what the laws and the safety behaviors are, and as well as for the law enforcement and the agency staff to understand what the laws and what the issues are. But then longer term, it's really about creating this culture of safety within your community, and ultimately it's about preventing those injuries and deaths. So there's a few key safety behaviors that typically get targeted with Watch For Me work, and this is based on what the crash data shows where the emphasis needs to lie. And it's really about seeking to change these behaviors through enforcement and education. So on the driver side, we look at driver yielding in a variety of locations, as well as safe passing of bicyclists, and then also attentiveness for both drivers and pedestrians when they're, in places where they would be mixing with one another, like parking lots or intersections or, at transit locations, getting on and off buses. And then visibility is important for both pedestrians and bicyclists at night, and so conspicuity is also a typical emphasis area for Watch For Me communities. But it's also important to realize what Watch For Me isn't. So it's not an anti-jaywalking campaign. We also know that based on evidence, strategies that rely on just holding a one-time event or only focus on raising awareness through, a concentrated media blitz, but then not doing anything ongoing, or, something where maybe you're just pamphleting or handing out flyers. That's not going to necessarily lead to long-term change in behavior. And so those things are useful and effective in getting the message out, but we really want to kind of dig a little deeper. And so Watch for Me strategy really involves several levels. It's comprehensive, it's partner-led, it's data-driven, and we're really looking at the long term. So we have high visibility enforcement for pedestrian and bicyclist and motorist laws. We look at engagement and dissemination of the safety messages to individuals, organizations, and the media. And then there's always an effort for coordinated communication between the partners to focus on safety. And the reason for this is because we found that this program is most effective where communities implement this targeted and ongoing approach to public education, community engagement activities, and the high visibility law enforcement operations. And so really what this is doing is building a system so that partners can help to engage across different levels and locations. A little bit about the Watch for Me history. This actually started as a pilot program. It started really as a project that was funded by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And in 2012, it launched as a pilot just in the Triangle area focused on pedestrian safety. Then in 2014 is when the statewide launch of the program occurred, and that included both bicyclist and pedestrian aspects. And so now we've been doing the statewide program, for the last several years, and it's typically had an annual cycle. This year, we're actually looking to begin transitioning from thinking about Watch for Me in this annual cycle to more of an ongoing year-round approach, because we recognize that the issues that communities are dealing with are an ongoing year-round issue. And so I'm going to explain a little bit more for those of you who may be returning partners. I'm going to explain a little bit more about what that means for the direction that we're moving towards. Also, to give you a little bit of a bigger picture context, so this graph shows the increase that we've had in Watch for Me communities since 2012, and you can see that it's steadily been increasing since then. Every year we have, a handful of partners that maybe don't return, but oftentimes we do have a significant proportion of returning partners coming in. And then every year we typically have, a handful or so of new partners that join. And so at this point, we've had a total of 60 different communities that's been involved in Watch for Me across the state. And some of them are active, as shown in the map here. So we think that each community who joins, we think of them as a partner. And one of the keys to success for partners communities is the formation and coordination with its coalition of local stakeholders. Partner leads tend to be housed in either police departments or planning agencies. A few have been led by a local university police department. The lead points of contact typically report spending an average of about 20 hours a month coordinating their local program. And this doesn't include the time for the other coalition members that are also involved. Some who've been working on Watch for Me programs longer are able to spend a little bit less time because it's more routine, kind of turnkey what they're doing. Others who are involved in really large regional efforts might spend more time. So it really just kind of depends on the geographic area that your local community might be interested in covering for your local program. What constitutes your community? Is it at the municipal level? Is it a cluster of municipalities? Is it at the county level, or some larger effort? Coalition members aid in different activities for that each partner community decides to implement. So it's really driven by the information and the data that you have on your community and what is important and the values that your community holds. But we definitely recognize that the concept of many hands make light work. So the reason for this is that addressing bicycle and pedestrian safety is a complex problem. And so tackling it really requires the work from that problem of many different angles. And that's why we really emphasize the partnerships and the coordination across different coalition members or stakeholders. So to think about who you might want to bring in when you're looking at your application and thinking about how to apply, we think about a variety of stakeholders. These are kind of the typical ones that we tend to see in Watch for Me communities, and it's really about bringing that broad mix into the picture. Now, at a minimum, law enforcement must be at the table for any Watch for Me community, since a core function of the Watch for Me NC program is supporting officers through training and assistance so that they're able to conduct those high visibility enforcement activities. But this can be at any level. So you could have municipal, county, university, campus, police, as long as law enforcement is at the table. And then other coalition members tend to represent public health, planning, engineering, schools, advocacy groups, local businesses, really anybody else in your community that has a vested interest in supporting bicycle and pedestrian safety. So beyond the traditional enforcement operations that focus on issuing warnings or citations as a mechanism to raise awareness, we also think about how officers can be involved in conducting kickoff events, media events, educational events, places where they could speak to traffic safety issues, specifically related to walking and cycling. And these are really good opportunities that create positive situations for the police to engage with the community while getting those key messages across. Another tool that some agencies use that casts officers in a positive light is the caught being good idea with tickets. And the way that works is that officers will hand out a gift certificate or something like that that would be sponsored by a local business to pedestrians or cyclists that are observed practicing good behaviors. And that's a really positive way to engage with the community. And my mouse doesn't want to work. There we go. So another strategy that we use with Watch for Me is some of the technical assistance that the Highway Safety Research Center provides. So we can aid partners in the outreach efforts that you would undertake by supplying sample press releases or strategies to earn free media. We also work with NCDOT on the statewide media releases that they do around key walking and cycling events. So like Walk to School Day happens every October, Bike to School Day it happens every May, and then Halloween and Back to School are also pretty important times to get bicycle and pedestrian messages out there. We also track the earned media that's generated in the local markets from the Watch for Me NC public engagement events so that we can see how effective we are and how effective you guys are in getting coverage by the local media, which really helps to amplify your message. So some commonly reported outcomes that we see from having tracked the program delivery over the past several years are what's listed here from our past partners. The lessons from each community are provided also in their profiles on the About link. So if you go to our website, you can actually look at community profiles from all of the past partners and get a sense of not only what they're doing, but you know, the types of relationships that they have and the types of events and outreach that they have found to be successful. So this can be a really good resource so that you can see what neighboring communities have done, or to look at peers that might be similar in population size to your community and get a sense of what implementation might look like for your community. Some other measured outcomes that we have been able to look at over the past years. In the pilot program, HSRC collected field data at the crosswalks to see whether behaviors were changing after law enforcement high visibility operations were conducted. And so in 7 triangle crossings or seven crossings in the Triangle area monitored through driver yielding study, they actually saw a 27 to 32% increase in yielding. So that shows that this program can have an impact in being out there in the public. We also saw improvements in pedestrians using the crosswalks, and so that was also a positive. More recently, the Highway Safety Research Center compared counties with Watch for Me programs with a control group of counties that have not ever participated in Watch for Me to compare the crash frequencies of the key crash types between those two groups. And we found a 12.8% reduction in pedestrian crashes in the counties that had done some sort of Watch for Me program. Key reductions were found specifically around nighttime crashes. It dropped 21.7%, and a reduction in the failure to yield crashes of 9.5%. So this is an evidence-based program that is having the effects that we want it to have. We've also been able to see that dozens of communities have passed resolutions or policies to reinforce the safety messaging and the programs that they're trying to do. We've got active coalitions in 39 communities right now. And we've also measured a significant increase in officers' knowledge going through the law enforcement training through a pre-post test type scenario. So again, this is definitely a program that has measured results. Some other benefits is maybe a little bit more tangential, but many communities in North Carolina already have a walk-friendly community designation. If you're not familiar with that, you can just Google it and learn a little bit more about it. It's kind of a parallel program to the League's bike-friendly designations. But being a Watch for Me partner can actually provide an opportunity to move into a higher level or seek that initial recognition. So that's a good thing for communities. North Carolina also is a Vision Zero state, and they have a Vision Zero plan. And several communities also have their own plans, either a Vision Zero type plan or maybe some other highway safety type plan or a master plan. And they may include goals that are related to the Watch for Me goals. Pedestrians and cyclists are among the most vulnerable, and they can represent up to 15% of all roadway fatalities. So a focus on these road users is a step towards achieving those broader Vision Zero goals that might be laid out in these other plans. And then finally, the Governor's Highway Safety Program supports this program, and they provide credits to communities for eligible activities through its statewide traffic enforcement program, which is a reporting system or a portal that law enforcement agencies can report all kinds of traffic safety related work. But Watch for Me has, with their enforcement operations, has a specific point of access for communities that are Watch for Me partners, where they can document certain educational events, media events, kickoff events, really any kind of place where they might be raising awareness on traffic safety and the key messages that might be eligible, as well as those enforcement operations. So what do participants get for being a Watch for Me community? North Carolina DOT typically spends about $150,000 on media ad buys, as well as materials to support these local efforts. And these items can help you raise awareness about the issues and lay that foundation for enforcement. So I'm going to show you just some types of ads and materials that have been supplied by NCDOT. They vary from year to year, but they include things like what's listed here. Typically, the media buys have included placing some sort of internet radio ad. In the past, they've also included doing internal and external transit ads on buses or inside buses or other creative media. NCDOT also produces and distributes print materials like what you see here with posters and bumper stickers and things like that, and the training materials to the partners. So the police departments will receive, that are new to Watch For Me, get 2 of these sandwich boards that are shown in the picture on the left to be used for enforcement operations. Last year's material distribution was significantly impacted by a budget shortfall within NCDOT, but we've been told that they have received a small amount of funding to provide limited materials like the bike lights and the reflective armbands and bumper stickers, as well as those various print materials to support the trainings and our partners, both new and returning, for 2020. Some other examples of the creative media that NCDOT has used in the past include clean graffiti messaging, was shown on the left here. That's a stencil that you can power wash a message onto a sidewalk at key locations. We do have this stencil that would be available to communities who would be interested in applying them themselves. They've also in the past used these gas pump toppers to get the message directly to drivers when they're pumping gas. And then, of course, I mentioned the radio ads either through Pandora or Spotify. Last year was the first year they did these car wraps that's shown in this bottom picture on the right in select media or select cities across the state. And so NCDOT is still finalizing what the media purchasing plans will be for 2020. But be on the lookout for something kind of like these ones that have been done in the past. The other thing that participants get is technical assistance. So in addition to those print materials, HSRC provides a range of the technical assistance, including the training for the law enforcement officers. We offer sample templates and social media content, timelines, toolkits, and an online resource to aid in carrying out the activities that your community might want to do. We also support a Google group listserv, and that allows for peer exchange and across different communities that are Watch For Me partners, and it allows for you to network and support each other and ask each other ideas throughout the year. The other thing that we're doing that's new this year for Watch For Me communities as far as technical assistance goes is to provide more targeted one-on-one type of assistance. And so new partner communities will have a kickoff meeting, a community kickoff meeting. And HSRC has a technical support team that will assist partners in preparing for and organizing this meeting. And it's to be held in the new partner community. Now, I will say that new partners are going to be defined as new applicants who have not ever participated in Watch For Me, as well as those that may be entering their second year of the program who need further technical assistance. We expect a diverse group of stakeholders to be encouraged to attend and form the basis of your coalition. So you'll be assigned a Highway Safety Research Center technical support member who will facilitate the development of action planning activities among your coalition members at this kickoff meeting. We'll also introduce you to the action planning template, and that will really be used as the roadmap for the communications, reporting, and check-in calls that will happen after that meeting. And it really helps new partners to lay that foundation for implementing their Watch For Me program locally. In addition to that kickoff meeting, we will also hold monthly check-in calls with new partners and bi-monthly check-in calls with returning partners. These check-in calls will provide that additional assistance to the partner communities and offer the opportunity to share best practices, learn about what your program is doing, and get those updates and progress from you via the phone, and then also provide strategies and help you troubleshoot as questions arise and be a way to share further resources. So it's really going to be a much more customized, tailored technical assistance based on where your community is at and what your community's needs are. This should have said 2020 enforcement training. So we are, another thing that we're kind of tweaking this year is the way that we're rolling out the law enforcement training. So in 2020, we are going to offer up to 5 of the full day workshops. These are kind of the fundamental basics for new and returning officers. We are currently scheduling these locations and dates, but the plan is basically that they would be offered throughout the calendar year to accommodate different, program schedules, and that they would be spread out across the state. Right now, we're looking at organizing these in Asheville, Hickory, the Triangle area, Williamston, and New Bern. So please definitely check the Watch For Me website periodically as these details are finalized. Now, I will say that the training is open to any law enforcement agency, but priority seating will be provided for the Watch For Me communities specifically. The officer training broadens the knowledge base of the state, across the state, on bicycle and pedestrian relevant laws, enforcement strategies, and really why it's important to target these traffic safety issues to drive crashes down. So it's a really good training. We get a lot of positive feedback from the officers that go through it. So I highly encourage you to get as many of your staff as possible to be able to attend once the schedules and the locations are posted. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention is in order to access the GHSP state traffic enforcement program or portal to get credits, you have to have attended the training. Okay, so some expectations for Watch For Me partners. In order to apply, you, of course, you have to submit an application. And as communities join due to the desire to reduce pedestrian and bicyclist injuries and crashes, the success of your local program is really dependent upon the time and effort that your coalition puts into addressing it over the long term. And so we do have some expectations that include officer participation in a full day training, attending that community kickoff meeting, and then, of course, disseminating the materials that NCDOT would provide, and then finally conducting enforcement operations within your community. Because of the more involved support that the Highway Safety Research Center is providing this year, through the customized assistance, we are expecting the application process to be a little bit more competitive this year, as we can only provide that support for up to 9 new applicants and up to 30 returning applicants. Oh my goodness. So the other thing that's important with all Watch For Me programs is to provide that reporting. And again, part of that will happen through the ongoing monthly calls or bi-monthly calls. But then we also have ways to submit reports on the outreach activities that your community is doing, as well as the enforcement operations that may be held. And so we want to make sure that we're getting that reporting information so that we're able to monitor the program delivery on an ongoing basis. These help us to monitor the impact of Watch For Me and also identify where we can make improvements or where new resources might need to be developed to support local programs. So it's definitely helpful. It's a good way for us to get feedback. Okay, so what do you need to do in order to become a Watch For Me partner? We've given you an overview of the program and what NCDOT expects. So really the first step is for you to begin talking with your stakeholders in your community and start to form that coalition. To be eligible, of course, you need law enforcement for sure. They play a prominent role in meeting the participation requirements, but your coalition should be broader than that. So fill out the online application as either a new or returning partner. There's different links for both. Also, note for returning partners that this deadline is moved up some from previous years, so be thinking about that and maybe start your actions on that sooner. Everybody's application needs to include a letter of support from each of the police departments that are going to be involved, that indicate a commitment to participate in that training, in the kickoff meeting, and then also to hold enforcement operations. If the police department is not the lead agency for your community, then you should also get a letter of support for the lead that would be responsible for the education and the outreach components specifically. That isn't to say that law enforcement wouldn't be involved in those activities, but we recognize that not all communities have that run through their PDs. So prior partners will remember that the application is now an online platform. Returning partners must complete the returning partner application. Make sure you plan accordingly, as I mentioned, to allow enough time to fill that out. For returning partners, because we do expect it to be a little bit more competitive, past activities and participation is going to be considered when selecting the returning partners based on demonstrated compliance with the previous year's expectations. All applicants should allow approximately 30 minutes to respond to the survey. You can respond over multiple sessions and your work will be automatically saved, but you have to use the same computer when you're coming back for those returning sessions. New partners will be selected based on demonstrating an ability for intra and interagency collaboration. So understanding your existing conditions, the context of the community that's going to be served, so looking at your demographics, your crash history, do you know where your problem locations are or what your problem behaviors are? What kind of plans do you have for community outreach or coordination with schools? And then can you demonstrate an aptitude to leverage other resources to extend the reach beyond the Watch for Me and See messaging and activities that you'll get through us and through NCDOT. So the 2020 program timeline, the applications are going to be due in January 31st. I believe that's at 5:00 p.m., but that's the deadline to apply. We anticipate that we can announce the new partners or really everybody that would be part of the Watch For Me program in 2020 in March. And then as I mentioned, the enforcement trainings, we're trying to hold them more kind of year-round, spread out across the year. So we're looking to try to hold the first one ideally in March or as soon thereafter as possible, and then spread those out between March and December. Also, we're expecting those community kickoff meetings for new partners to happen ideally in April. The sooner the better, of course, but we recognize it might take a little bit of time for ramp up. So sometime between April and May, you should be targeting to have that kickoff. And then typically, there's been a peak program season as far as the media buys and when some of the implementation for Watch For Me happens. And that tends to happen in the summer to fall time frame. And so we will be looking at that as well for the communities this year. So that is a lot of information to go through. You've got a couple of ways to ask questions. There is a chat pod that you can enter your questions into, and everybody that's on the webinar will see that. Or you can enter questions into the question pod, and we'll try to address them now. I believe everybody is muted on the line, so I'm thinking you won't be able to verbally address. So you'll have to write your question in. But we're open for any questions that anybody might have at this point. See what that says. I can't read it.
Oh, that's
Is Officer Green? Okay, looks like a question came in. Okay, what is the funding for this program? Specifically, how to send officers to trainings and other expenses related? That's a good question. So the Governor's Highway Safety Program actually funds the Watch for Me training and technical assistance that the Highway Safety Research Center provides, and that happens through a grant that's to NCDOT, to the Integrated Mobility Division. So officers who attend the trainings can come at no cost. It is an amazing deal for officers to be able to attend these trainings. So really the only hoops that you have to jump through is to provide the staff time for them to come and attend. Now I will say that because we're holding the trainings across the state this year, there is the possibility that, you know, if a certain date works better for you or for a particular officer, but it's a little bit further away, you may have, you know, a little bit more travel cost, but we are trying to spread these out with the idea that they should be doable in a day trip type situation to any of the agencies that might be interested in attending. But attending the training is at no cost to the partner or to the police department. Okay, so here's another one about please repeat who can apply. So really any agency can apply. The main point is that within your application there will be some information that you will need to provide on how law enforcement is included as part of your partner. So, for example, I'm trying to think of a good one. I believe in Winston-Salem, I believe it is the planning department that is the lead contact for their Watch for Me program as a whole, but they have a strong partnership with the Winston-Salem Police Department. Another example would be in other communities, it might be the police department who is the lead agency, but they might also bring other stakeholders to the table. As far as a neighborhood group, I would say that might be a little bit too narrow of a focus. I would really think it needs to be maybe at a municipal level. And mostly that's because once you start getting into this work, you will find that you will need partners within your, planning or engineering, public works, law enforcement. There's a lot of governmental stakeholders that need to be at the table if you want to really be able to impact change and effectively move the needle. And so I would say a neighborhood group would be a wonderful stakeholder to be involved, but probably would not be appropriate to lead the effort. Keep in mind the other thing is that agencies have to have that letter of commitment, that the applicant has to have that letter of commitment from the law enforcement agency. And all of this information is online as well when you go to participate and to put together your application. I believe there are also links online because the application is it takes a little time to go through. I believe you can also look at a PDF version of all the questions set so you can get a sense of what is being asked. That can be really helpful when you're bringing together or you're reaching out to potential coalition members now, because you might not have all the answers. And so you might need to bring in other stakeholders in order to help you be able to respond to the application. Okay, so we have another comment here that I hope you will consider letter-sized poster formats this year. While the big ones are good in some places, smaller ones are good for bulletin boards at grocery stores, employee bulletin boards in offices, etc. That is a really great comment, Barb. I will pass that along to NCDOT. I will also say that all of the materials are available online as well. The graphics are available online, so any agency can actually print out whatever they need that might be in addition to whatever NCDOT supplies. So that could be another way to get those the poster content in a slightly different format. We've got another comment that says the pedestrian data query and bicycle data query server is not working. You know what, Dexter, I actually went online last night and found that to be the case as well. And I know sometimes the server kind of goes into some sort of maintenance mode, but if you're still having that problem this morning, my guess is it's not because I was on very late at night last night. So I will pass that along, and we will see if we can get that worked out. So thank you for letting us know. Okay, Barb, thank you for letting us know. It sounds like it is definitely a problem. Okay. Any other questions? I think. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything else come in. We're happy to stay online for a few more minutes in case anybody does have questions. But at this point, Ed, do you have any other closing comments or thoughts?
No, I think it's good presentation. I encourage everybody to go and look at the Watch For Me website. Engage your partners. Engage not only your traditional partners, but your non-traditional partners. I think there'll be a lot of opportunity there and ways to amplify the program within your communities. And then give yourselves some time with those partnerships to find out who can help you with that application, because that may present itself as well with questions as you move through the application. And feel free to reach out and ask those questions and engage us as best you can. We're open to new ideas and helping you through this process, and we look forward to receiving those.
Thanks, Ed. We have had a few more questions come in. So Derek was asking if we could let you know when the PB-CAT comes back online. I can certainly email the people who are on the call today. But of course, for anybody else, you'll just have to try again because I won't know if you've been trying. So yeah, Dexter, I can definitely let you know. We had another question about a community that previously participated quite a while ago, and that there's been changeover in the staff and the departments that might be involved. I would say the best thing to do would be to go to the community profiles. If you go onto the Watch For Me website, I believe it's the About link, you can get to all the community profiles, and you can look at what your county or your local communities did in the past. I will also say that if your community hasn't participated in 5 years, I would probably consider you as a new partner again, as opposed to a returning partner. But that's largely going to be dependent upon you as far as which application you think makes sense to fill out. If your community really hasn't been doing anything with Watch For Me in the last 5 years, then I would lean towards being a new partner. If you've been doing things in the bike ped safety realm, but just haven't been actively calling yourself a Watch For Me community, then you might want to reconsider that. But feel free to reach out to me if you have additional questions after you look at your community profile from the past and think about what you've been doing over the last 5 years. Okay, another question. Is there a minimum number of partners that applicants need to have other than law enforcement officers? No, there is no minimum. It really kind of depends on the size of your community and the population that you're serving and the issues that you're addressing. That said, the more stakeholders that you can bring in that have a unified goal with that speaks to Watch for Me with reducing bicyclist pedestrian crashes and fatalities, probably the better success you'll have in starting to chip away at this very complex problem. And Derek, I got your email, and that it's for Stokes County. So we can look too and see if we can find out anything for you. Okay, another question. What commitments are applicants expected to make? Does it require a financial commitment? So there's no direct financial commitment, I would say, involved. So for example, the law enforcement training is provided at no cost. The technical assistance that HSRC is providing to the communities is offered at no cost to the community. That said, it does require manpower and time from the communities if you really want to be effective in developing your Watch for Me program, identifying what activities you want to undertake, and then implementing those. Those do take manpower and time and possibly supplies and materials on your side. So it really kind of depends on how involved you want to be. If you want to consider that a financial commitment, I think some communities have been looking at that as maybe an in-kind kind of a donation, but there's no requirement for a funding match of any kind in order to be eligible to be a Watch for Me community. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any additional questions come in. If you do think of something else and you want to ask it, feel free to email me or Ed. Our contact information is provided here on the screen. And the webinar was recorded. We will be posting that hopefully by the end of the day, today, or possibly tomorrow. So please be on the lookout for that if you need to go back to reference anything or if you need to share information with other folks in your community. But yeah, please feel free to reach out with any additional questions that you might have. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and we'll be in touch and look for your application. Thanks a lot.